we've now reached, and you can see here, I'm just going to leave these here. We've now reached the end of this section of Module 7. This is the end of Module 7 entirely. Here now, we are going to be focusing on the next steps. And now that you've had many opportunities to think about this and practice this, now you're going to have an opportunity to go further. Let's review all of what we've learned here about the supporting practices so that we can now engage in a discussion of them. And I am going to erase this here, actually, because it's a little bit hard to see. It's going to be a little bit hard to see. So we're going to look at these supporting practices, each of them, and talk about their role in the DBI process. So here's the DBI process. And as we know, we are using explicit instruction as a what? As an adaptation from the taxonomy of adaptations. We've selected that in this case as the type of the adaptation we're going to make because in reviewing the student diagnostic data, we concluded that what we need to do to maximize student learning is to increase the amount of explicit instruction. And as we talked about throughout these modules, the three methods are to use effective methods to elicit responses, provide immediate specific feedback, and maintain a brisk pace. Those are the supporting practices that we've discussed. And so those are the things that we want to see throughout. And we've now discussed in detail checklists that can allow you to think about what specific behavior should you engage in your instruction that will maximize, they'll lead to lots of responses and students being cognitively engaged in the processing. They'll be engaged in processing the content. The wheels will be turning. You'll either be keeping them with you, keeping their heads in the game, or you'll be actually checking the accuracy of their processing by doing different forms of assessment. With providing feedback, as you've learned in Module 7, you want to provide immediate feedback, you want to provide specific feedback. And now, finally, we've talked now about brisk pacing, knowing when to move on because students are ready, and knowing that we must use the other supporting practices. So that is the conclusion of Module 7 with the exception of this understanding. It's important to remember that in Module 7, you have these activities to complete. So it's important to remember you need to complete all of these things. There's one more of these things that's going to be on the next page, and that is the journal entry and the application activity. So what we're going to do here, now that we've talked about all the supporting practices, is for you to select one of the three supporting practices for you to focus on. You want to talk about why you selected this practice, and it could be even eliciting responses, which was one that we talked about previously, but you still think you want to work on. You're going to describe an upcoming lesson that you're going to teach, and then explain how you're going to adapt the lesson to increase the explicitness of the instruction. If you have a coach that you're working with, if you have an instructional leader you're working with, if you have a peer you're working with, you'll share that journal entry with them. If you don't have those things, this can be an activity you do on your own. And then finally, what you're going to do here is you're going to implement the lesson that you described in your journal entry. After implementing it, you're going to reflect with the person, your coach if you have one, your instructor if you have one, a peer if you have one, or reflect on your own. And to do that, you can make a video of your own instruction and then watch the video yourself and maybe find someone else to do it with. And the questions you want to ask yourself are, were you successful in implementing the supporting practice? Were students engaged, and how might you adjust instruction in the future? And what is the criterion you're going to use to decide whether or not this has been effective? Are you going to say, I liked the lesson, I didn't like the lesson? Your answer should be no. The goal here is not to do that. The goal here is to think about what? To think about the checklist. The idea of the checklist is to take it out of the realm of good and bad and put it in the realm of whether or not we met those criteria. So if you were successful, that meant you met the criteria on the list. It didn't mean that you did a good job or a bad job. It meant you met the criteria. And that as a result, students were hopefully very engaged. And when we say engagement, we should not be talking about wedding rings, but certainly not that. But we also are not just talking about fun activities. We're talking about activities that what's the purpose of engagement? They keep students actively engaged in processing the content that you're teaching. And so if we see that in the lesson, then we're actually accomplishing the goal using those supporting practices. And based on the way you've thought about your use of supporting practices and student engagement, you can think about what's next for you. If you felt like you did a good job on everything, I guarantee you that you can do at least one thing even better. And I know that because as you've seen throughout these modules, we've looked at instruction and we have increased the quality of instruction throughout these modules. We've talked about ways in which instruction could increase in quality, even when it's very good. We've shown you very good examples of instruction, but we think sometimes we can make them even better. So even you, the audience here, the folks at home, you can do even better than you're already doing. Many of you are great teachers, and some of you who are new, you will be great teachers, but even the best of you can do a little bit better. We hope that through these last two modules, you've understood how to use supporting practices to do just that. So, congratulations on completing Module 7.